so we can create magic. That's what this whole month has been about. And the past 4 Sundays, Dr. Michelle has helped us explore the attitudes, approaches, and habits needed to uncover our hidden treasures, face our fears, and trust the universe, all of which lead us to our most creative, magical lives. Those are the lives that God wants us to live. So we have guest speakers today. And Dr. Michelle, it takes about 10 of us to fill your shoes. So I would ask our guest speakers to stand and face the congregation. And I would like to introduce them because we do have some new guests here today. This is spiritual life coach Peter Waring, spiritual life coach Susan Peacock, spiritual life coach and Reverend Lonnie Whittington. There is a relationship there. Spiritual life coach Lori Murray, spiritual life coach Rhonda Emmerich, spiritual life coach and Reverend John Halliburton, spiritual life coach and Reverend Mary Jane Hyde, spiritual life coach Karen Nestor. And as you know, at the beginning of the service, spiritual life coach and minister Cindy Fairmont is holding the high watch for us today. So with every guest that is greeted here at CLF, if you would join me in rubbing your hands together and sending love to these fine people, and repeat after me, please. We open our hearts. And we open our minds to receive your wisdom and words of truth. We bless you in all that you do here at CLF and in the world. Thank you for being you. We love you. Peter Waring.
Good morning. Big Magic. The subtitle of the book is called Creative Living Beyond Fear. And Elizabeth Gilbert, the author, says that creative living is a life that is driven more strongly by curiosity than by fear. Understanding and overcoming fear has become the center point of my spiritual journey over the years. And this is what I've learned. The negative thoughts, that is, the negative thoughts and feelings that you experience internally are always driven by fear. That voice inside your head has one very specific goal, and that's your safety. So it's always working on that. That voice will continue to convince you to do absolutely nothing rather than follow your dreams. Because nothing is safer than stepping out into the unknown. Does that sound familiar? So it's this unknown future that drives the fear response, whether consciously or unconsciously. So ask yourself, how many times has that voice inside my head told me that I couldn't do it? How many times has that voice been wrong? If this was a friend talking to you, how long would you continue to listen to that person? Imagine listening to that for years and years, knowing that they were full of it, and yet allowing that person to control your life. Now, you can dump a friend, but you can't dump that internal roommate. So you need to learn how to live with that and be open to the warnings of danger, but not fear. So to listen to that fear is really putting more faith in what you can't do or what's wrong rather than what you can do and following your curiosity. So how is managing how is managing the fear response been in terms of creating big life in my life, or big magic? So I began my journey with the most common disease known to mankind, and that is the belief that I am not good enough. I craved acceptance, and I craved belonging, and I felt that I had to earn love from others, and I was fearful of rejection. And I feared rejection so much that fear kept me from enjoying the fullness of life. And being aware of my thoughts and feelings allowed me to discern when I was in that belief system. Now, when I started learning and understanding the tools of science of mind, this is what I did. I reprogrammed my mind to believe that I am God. I am God in the flesh. And that I am not only worthy, but that wherever I am and whomever I'm speaking to, I am God and they are God. And I look at them with knowing in their eyes that they are spirit in person right there. And that because of that, there is nothing to fear. And there is nothing for me to do. All I have to do is just be love. So I'll close with a very simple example. As a person who did not believe in myself and craving acceptance, I embodied this new belief, and I quickly found that social engagements were truly effortless. As long as I'm being the loving expression of God, there is nothing for me to do, and then life just unfolded in magical ways. This is the promise of opening your heart to love.
I need hands. Just tip it. There we go. Okay. 2 magnets. Can you hear me? There we go. Okay. We're always creating every day. From the moment we get up in the morning, we decide what we're going to wear, where we're going to go, who we're going to visit with. Whether we'll create a painting, a beautiful card, a photograph, bake something for a friend, we're always creating. The magnetic law of attraction. This is a magic flower. It doesn't look like a magic flower. It looks like a piece of plastic with something in it, like that. This was an idea at one time. Somebody had an idea of putting all these folds together and creating a flower. What's your flower? We all have flowers that we can give to the world. That's why we were created, to give something wonderful to the world. One of my gifts is photography. And I had the good fortune of photographing Dr. R.Sc.P back in 1980. I went out to her home in Sun City where she was living to see the location because she wanted to be photographed there. And on the front sidewalk there were rose bushes, just beautiful, huge pink rose bushes. And she told me that her husband had planted them for her because he knew that she loved roses. This was before he passed. So I created a beautiful portrait of her. This portrait hangs in the practitioner room. She's a beautiful person, and she was also, for those of you who don't know, Ernest Holmes' practitioner. I loved her because she was bawdy and outrageous, and very, very artistic and really fun to be around. So when I create a portrait, I just have kind of a little prayer. I get to know people and I say, before I go into a sitting or I'm driving down to the studio, I ask for perfect composition, lighting, exposure, and expression. And I bless the God in them and the God in me. And I reach to them on a soul connection. And to me, this is one of the ways that I can give my gift to the world and that I can create beauty and show everybody that they're beautiful. What's your gift?
The book of Mark 9:23, Jesus says, all things are possible for those who have belief. Belief is magic, and belief makes things happen. In December 2012, I had open heart surgery. I had 2 valves replaced, I had a triple bypass, I had an aortic reconstruction, and I had a defibrillator implanted, believe it or not. It was a major surgery. I lost 25 pounds when I was in the hospital. Upon release of the hospital, which was the January of the next year, 2014, I started to do pretty well. I went back actually to the gym in February, but then as the months went on, I lost more and more energy. I just couldn't walk very far without getting lightheaded, feeling really, really weird. And by January of 2014, I had had 2 shocks from the defibrillator, and none of you want to experience that. It's akin to sticking your tongue in an electrical outlet, but they did save my life. When I was in the hospital, the doctor came in and said, "You are a candidate for a heart transplant. Your heart is down to 10% of its capacity." I really didn't feel as if I had a future, and I did not want to have a heart transplant. So I was looking for alternatives, any way out that I could. And I had heard of John of God, a healer down in Mexico, in Brazil. So I went down there the end of February of 2014 and was there for 2 weeks. Now, John of God is a healer, but he does not say, "I will heal you." He says, "I will help you." He's very clear in this. I will help you. There's a huge distinction between I will help you and I will heal you. A lot of people go down there expecting to be healed. But he expressly says that it is God through you and through me that helps heal. So I had the task of starting myself, of having belief in myself that my heart would heal. When I came back within 2 weeks, I had already expressed a major healing, and I walked in through these doors, and people said, "My, you're glowing. You're actually healthier," which I was, much healthier. By July of that same year, I started back into working out. Michelle and I work at a gym that we're monitored with computers. And so for the last year and a half, I have been working out. And I have been going through regular spiritual practice of believing that my heart is healing. Now, my sister, who's a doctor, or a nurse, and other doctors say that your heart is a muscle that cannot be rebuilt. I went through not a stress test, but a strength test on Friday. And when you go through a strength test and you are monitored with computers, they will give you what's called a Q-score. And a Q-score is an accumulation of all of the factors. Now, Q-scores for 20 and 30 years olds are around 70. My Q-score was 91. So I am no longer a candidate for a heart transplant. And I believe that a lot of the stress that I had gone through is to help you people understand that belief is a huge factor and that you need to control your own belief. And belief helped me not only create a life of magic, but belief helped me live.
Good morning to y'all. Let me do some housekeeping up here real quick. I'm going to talk to you today about creative visualization. It is a mental technique that uses the imagination to make your dreams and goals come true. Directed in the right way, creative visualization can improve your life and attract to you success and prosperity. It is a power that can alter your environment and your circumstances. It causes events to happen. It can attract money. It can attract people, possessions, and love into your life. By visualizing a certain event, situation, or object, you attract it into your life. It's kind of like daydreaming is what you want to, kind of similar to that, a little bit. But for some people, this looks like magic. But there is no magic involved. Only the natural processes of the power of thoughts and natural mental laws. I first started using visualization to create outcomes that I wanted when I was about 17 or 18. It was taught to me by my golf coach for use in playing competition. So the night before each tournament or event that I was playing in, I would visualize the 18-hole round and know that it was a great outcome. And so the next day, when I would go to play, on each tee that I stood on, I would visualize again that hole just as I had done the night before. Well, some really good things started happening. My scores started dropping, and for a golfer, that's a really good thing, having your scores go lower. And as my scores went lower, another really good thing started happening. I started to win more and more tournaments. So I realized, okay, well, if golf worked that way, what if I used it in my daily life? Well, I did. And what happened was that my life just turned around, and it was for the better on a daily basis. So let's fast forward now to 2006. I bought my first home as a newly single woman. I bought a house that I absolutely loved, but was a bit out of my price line. But I thought, well, I can hang on to this for a couple of years, so not a problem. So I started doing what I know to do. I started visualizing. And as I visualized, I added to that techniques that I learned in religious science. And these tools, they helped me tremendously. And to make a long story short on that, I now have a mortgage that I can afford very easily. Also, and this is the big one, also I think that God blessed me with that big hailstorm of October 2010, because the outside of my house got all fresh and renewed. So, and here was the visualization that I had for that. The visualization was seeing me with an affordable mortgage and a fresh look for the outside of my home. That's what I had visualized. So everything came to fruition. And as Reverend Michelle would always say, oh, how usual.
Good morning. I'm going to speak to you about creating big magic in a relationship. I'm sure there is at least one or two of you out here who have wanted to create big magic in a relationship like I have. And I have done that using the science of mind principles and writing spiritual mind treatments, which is our form of affirmative prayer, a 5-step affirmative prayer. I created the relationship, the marriage that I have with my husband, Steve. We have been married 5 wonderful years. Prior to that, I was married almost 25 years to a man. We were divorced 2 months short of our 25th wedding anniversary. The first half of our marriage was wonderful. I was very happy. Everything seemed to be wonderful. The second half was not that way. I was very unhappy. I was very miserable. I wanted to make changes. I didn't know what to do. I was very actively involved at New Vision Center, and I was on the practitioner track, which, as some of you may know, it takes about 5 years of study to become a practitioner. And during those classes, you write a lot of spiritual mind treatments. And I wrote many, many treatments for my marriage, for my husband, for my relationship. And I thought they didn't work. So I thought. So I decided in May of 2009 to leave the relationship and move on. At that time, I decided that I also was no longer interested in being with a man. They were too much trouble. They caused me too much pain. I was done with men. Well, the universe had something else in mind, because I had been writing these treatments for 5 years, wanting a perfect relationship, a perfect husband, a perfect everything. And I had created the void. I released what did not serve me. I released that relationship, and I created the void, and in walked Steve. 4 months later, we went on our first date. 11 months later, we were married, and we've been happily married for 5 years. Now, I am assisting with 2 inward journey classes, the day class and the night class, and that's the beginning of practitioner training. And a lot of the students email me their mind treatments. And I realized I need to clean out my computer and organize things because they're calling their mind treatments the same thing I'm calling mine. So I need to get it organized. So I started rereading all my mind treatments that I had spent 5 years writing, looking for the perfect husband, husband that loved me, husband that supported me in my career, husband that supported me in my life. And I realized I had created that. I didn't create it with the first husband because you can't do treatment for somebody else to want something or desire something or to feel something. You can only treat your mind, yourself. And so I realized I had created that, and Steve is what I created. And I jokingly tell him, I created you. I tell him that a lot. And also when you do mind treatments, you treat for this or something better. Well, I wanted this, like we all do. I wanted this, not the something better, but I kept treating this or something better. And I realized I got the something better, and that's how I created the big magic in my relationship.
And more housekeeping. We need to look at our spiritual life as a process, a path, and a continuing adventure. We seem to begin our spiritual exploration by solving problems, one at a time. Dollars for this, money for that, fix my marriage, cure my aching back. Sort of a game of spiritual whack-a-mole. Problem comes up and we fix it, or get rid of it, or solve that one solitary problem. If we look at the Sacred Seven as our spiritual toolkit, we seem to use very few of the processes or tools available. Spiritual mind treatment and affirmation, certainly, and maybe visualization. We take a course or two, Foundations trots out spiritual mind treatments and affirmations, and we learn how to use them. But they trot out the whole war chest, and we only use those 2. So we're kind of like the man who only owns one tool, a hammer. Everything starts to look like a nail. We may even use our birthday certificate to go see a practitioner or life coach. We expect them to pray away the problem for us. If the only contact you have with a spiritual life coach is a quick prayer after service, this kind of thinking is natural. In a full hour session, we have time to tell you about the wonders that are created by a consistent spiritual practice. Interesting, isn't it? The doctors, lawyers, and mystics are all said to have a practice. When we broaden our interests beyond incidents and began to be aware of life as a continuum, a path leading us to fulfillment, not just a moment, but for our complete existence. Then we can talk about prosperity rather than just money for that new car. Careers instead of jobs. We suddenly see purpose in the entire Sacred Seven. Meditation, which calms and steadies our existence and opens our ears to the divine. Visioning, a metaphysical plan for the future. Spiritual mind treatment, creating a positive statement for the law to work on. Affirmations, a short form of the realization step in treatment. Kind of a reminder to keep our minds on track. Visualizing our good so that it is constantly before our mind. And sacred service, or seva, becomes a way of life that smooths the path and fills the air with gratitude. Tithing keeps the flow and consciousness moving and alive. Now we can understand affirmative prayer. Spiritual mind treatment and affirmations become our language, rather than a lingo we switch into when we need it. Finally, we learn to deal with life as a continuum, not items, but an attitude, a wholeness. We can now have prosperity instead of just money for this or that. It does take a bit of work, but it actually becomes fun. There is always something that needs improvement. I don't know about you, but I don't have this health thing nailed yet. But I'm working on it. Talk to one of us, and we'll give you some ideas for your personal program.
So we start using these spiritual practices, as John just talked about. We go to classes. We come to service on Sunday, and we apply the principles that Michelle teaches us. And we're going along, and I say there's one of three things that happens. There's more, but I'm going to talk about just the three. Let's do that. One is we're doing all that stuff and things are working out. They're just going right for us. You know, everything's in alignment. We got the right relationship, right job. We're feeling fulfilled, abundance, and all that. So it's going good. Good. That's great. Just keep on keeping on. Keep doing what you're doing because it's going to keep going. There's a second group, though, and that's the group where you're doing all that stuff. You're doing your sacred seven, practicing the principles, come to church on Sunday, and something else is happening. Actually, nothing's happening. Nothing's changing. You're still in the same unhappy relationship. We may be in a job we don't like. Still have more bills than money. So it seems like nothing is happening. And how many people are maybe in that role? How many of you? Yeah, it happens. It happens. And so it's a frustrating place to be. And it feels like nothing's happening and it's never going to change. Okay, then we have a third group. And that's the group where you're doing all of your stuff. You're following the sacred, you're following the spiritual practices. You're coming to church on Sunday, listening to Michelle's message, applying the principles she teaches. And not only is nothing happening, it's not nothing happening, but now things are just blowing up. I mean, you had a job and you don't. You were in a relationship and now you're not. Things just seem to not just be not changing, but things are going wrong. How many are in that one? Come on, I am. I'm in the middle of that one. So just real quick, this year I got two rather major unhappy diagnoses. My company I worked with for 15 years decided to merge with another company, and all indications were that we were losing our jobs. I love my job. I didn't want to lose it. That's changing, though. That is looking more encouraging. And for years, I've been trying to buy the condo I live in, and it finally started happening. It's had its own little challenges and pains, and it's been like a baby giving birth to a baby. Just that situation. So, a lot of stuff has seemed like, on the appearance, that it's not working for me, and yet. That tends to be the time when we think, oh, this stuff doesn't work. Oh, maybe we shouldn't do this. Maybe it's time to quit. Find something else. There's got to be something. We've got to have that magic thing that's going to fix this. And it's natural. It's natural to feel that way. But the truth is that this is the time to keep on doing what we're doing and to do it maybe even more. If we take that sacred 7 and we're only doing 2, well, we're going to step that up and do 4, maybe. If we're only praying a couple times a day, maybe we want to do it more. Maybe we want to do it all the time. More meditation, whatever our spiritual practices, we want to keep going and doing more at that time. And what's happening is, actually, the more spiritual practices we do, the more we change our thinking, we're really just changing our thoughts. And through that process, we are revealing more of who we are, the true being that we are, which is the God being. And as Ernest Holmes says in this thing called You, he says we're individualized expressions of the One. We're unique, all unique, and we're not separate. We're not unique in that we're separate, but we are all rooted in that One. And so we all, as Susan said, come here with our gifts. We come here with gifts, and the idea is to reveal as much of that as we possibly can so we can share those gifts. And so, while we're going through the challenges, it is very important to just keep on keeping on and to keep doing our spiritual practices and have faith that even if it takes 5 years to treat for the right and perfect relationship, it will reveal itself. And so thank you.
Hi there. Let's see, let me turn this on. A few months ago, I was looking for a topic that I could present to women's business groups as a life coach, and an idea came to me. What if I could create a tool that would support people in raising their energy level so they could create what they wanted easily from a space of joy on a daily basis using their own memories? I did some research, and I came across a chart from Dr. David Hawkins, author of Power versus Force. This shows the level of energy we hold when we're feeling certain emotions, like anger. Look where our energy level lives when we feel anger, at 150. Pretty low, huh? Now look where our energy level lives when we feel courage, and when we feel reason, and when we feel love. And how about peace? When we feel peace, we feel bliss. So, when we're feeling this deep level of peace, you resonate at a level of 600. As we know from our studies in science of mind, that what we think, we create. So, what could I create that would support, with repetition, a continued higher level of energy during the day? Something that would remind our minds to stay at that level on an hourly basis. That's when Bliss Moments was born. Another idea came to me. What if I could create a free app that people could use on their desktop computer or smartphone that would remind them to live from a state of bliss? And what if it only took a moment every hour to raise our level of energy to that blissful level somewhere around 600? A short time later, I was sitting in a laundromat with my friend, Reverend Cindy, enthusiastically sharing this Bliss Moments idea that I had with her. We were both cooing over this precious little baby that was sitting in a laundry cart next to us. And Cindy asked the mom, "What's the baby's name?" And the mom replied, "Bliss." Well, both of our mouths dropped open, and I actually went so far as to have the mom spell the baby's name. Cindy and I knew that this was the universe talking to me. That was my first, what we call here, holy shift moment. That's what Elizabeth Gilbert in Big Magic, this month's book, talks about, an idea that wants to be made manifest. And I believe that Bliss Moments chose me. Fast forward a few weeks, and I'm still thinking. I'm just thinking in the stages of not actually doing anything about this idea that found me. And I answer my phone, and clearly out of the blue, a man says, "How would you like our app company to create an app for your company?" Another holy shift moment. He was calling to create an app for my other business, and I told him my idea about Bliss Moments. Now, knowing what I do, if I don't bring Bliss Moments to life, that idea is looking to be manifest someplace else. I wrote this talk last Monday, and when I finished, I decided to Google search an app company that I had found a few months ago and then lost in cyberspace. Oh, how usual that the company came up first on my Google search. 2 months later, I'm now working with this app company, building a Bliss Moments app, and it will be a reality at your app store for free in the near future. This is how it works.
So let's anchor these words of truth in prayer. This is how it works. There is one mind, one spiritual essence that creates everything. Call it spirit, call it God, call it universal love. It simply is, and it always has been, and it is ceaseless and changeless, and always present and always available. That life, that magical life, is waiting to be manifested through each thing and every one. So I carry Sherman knowing that there's only one life. I know that I am that life. And I know through spiritual mind principles I can create my life of magic. And I speak my word for myself and everyone gathered here today, knowing that this is the truth for everything and everyone, including those within the sound of my voice, that life is yearning to be expressed. And I know and accept that whatever kernel of truth, whatever bliss moment flickered across anyone's mind here this morning, that is already held in the mind and heart of that individual to be expressed as only that individual being of God can express it. It's beautiful and it's wonderful. And I know and accept that there are no holds barred. Everything is open to be created with ease and grace and beauty and power. Power for the good of the individual and for all that are blessed by these magical moments and these magical lives. I am so very grateful. Grateful for this opportunity to be amongst and to learn from those who have created magical lives, as I know I can do it too. Thank you for this prayer that is already made manifest in the one mind. Thank you, God. Thank you, life. Thank you, eternal bliss. I release my word into the universal law of the divine, knowing it has been heard, knowing it has been made manifest, already here and now on this earth plane, needing to do nothing further but step aside and watch the gifts and the beauty of magical lives unfold here and now, all across this planet. And so it is.